Welcome to the LeadHerSuite Podcast, hosted by Karlyn D. Henderson. The LeadHerSuite Podcast serves as a champion experience for high-achieving executive women, helping her navigate the complexities of leadership and conquer internal and external female-specific challenges to become a confident and influential leader aligned with God's design in femininity leadership. If you are ready to break free from self-monitoring, burnout, and broken beliefs to move towards sustainable femininity leadership, then you are in the right space. And now, here's your host, Karlyn D. Henderson.
You are sitting in the car in the driveway. The engine is off. The house lights are on. But you cannot go in yet. You are sitting in the dark because it is the only place where you are not the boss, the mom, the wife, and or the friend. Your jaw is locked so tight it hurts. Your heart is still racing from that 4 p.m. meeting. You know that one. The one where you had the perfect strategy, but before you spoke, before you did that thing that you always do, you ran into that internal mindset, that physical freeze. You asked yourself, how will this land? Am I going to be too firm, too direct, too soft? So you hesitated. You softened your delivery to fit the mold, and in a split second, your brain hit a glitch. Can you relate? Hi, I am Karlyn D. Henderson. Welcome to the LeadHerSuite Podcast, a business podcast for high-achieving executive women who want to embrace femininity leadership. Here is a quote from a woman leader. Reading the room faster than the room reads us is a useful skill, but it is an expensive habit. I need you to know that you are not losing your mind. You are just exhausted from the invisible labor of constantly monitoring yourself, what I call balancing. If you feel like you are holding your department, your division, your nonprofit, or small business together using Scotch tape, sheer willpower, then this episode is for you. This is the high cost of constant self-monitoring, breaking free from balancing that is killing your decision making. Let's look at the data, okay? 80% of women executive leaders work harder than their peers just to be seen as competent. Major studies have shown a broken rung on the ladder for women in leadership, where men are often promoted based upon their perceived future ability, while you, a woman leader, you are required to consistently prove your results over and over again to get the same seat at the table. And for women of color, this burden is even heavier. You are performing advanced leadership in basic rooms, managing the strategy of the company while simultaneously managing the emotional temperature of everyone else to survive microaggressions and tone policing. Yes, you are constantly balancing your tone, your word, your competence under what I call the magnifying glass. Yes, you know that magnifying glass when you are giving zero margin for error, and every word that you speak and every action is zoomed in with intense scrutiny. You know, you are over prepared for every slide in the presentation, and you overthink every sentence in the email before you hit the send button. While your peers walk into the room with their skills taken for granted as they are viewed for the future potential, and you are seen as just starting at the starting line. And that balancing isn't just annoying, it is frustrating. While you are spending your energy managing other people's comfort and slim expectations, you become drained. Your mental capacity and your physical vigor are exhausted. You stop making high-level decisions and start reacting to very noisy responses. Now your brain is forced to juggle multiple things. For instance, you shift from being a visionary to being reactive. You're constantly balancing, creating tunnel vision, forcing you to solve problems rather than forcing you or focusing you on high level strategy. You move from being a driver of growth to an operational bottleneck because you are stuck in a reactive survival mode. Instead of looking at the long term vision, which you are skilled for, you have the competency around, your mental energy is consumed by reading the room and managing others' comfort and expectation. Another example, severe decision fatigue. Oh, I know this all too well. The internal balancing of your tone and the perception, constantly asking yourself, how will this land? That drains your mental fuel before you even reach a final choice. This leads to decision fatigue, where you once were directed a multi-million dollar initiative. Now you find yourself paralyzed by even the simple task, like replying to an email. This exhaustion creates a slow productivity for the organization, your team, and even you, where decisions that should have taken weeks now take months. Third thing, increased risk. Operating under consistent scrutiny strips you away from resilience that is needed to make calculated risk. To protect your leadership position, you are being defensive. You start second guessing yourself to avoid pushback. In other words, you stop sharing bold ideas just to stay out of the line of fire, which eventually makes your leadership invisible to the board of directors, sponsors, and even clients. The fourth thing, and I talked about this in my last episode of the podcast, the glitch and the brain fog. This is when your nervous system is crushed by invisible labor, a balancing which includes code switching and self filtering. You experience the glitch, the physical reaction to hesitation, stuttering, stammering, freezing up during high stake meetings. As I shared in my last episode, this isn't a lack of competency, it is your brain going offline because you are processing too much and the environment and the friction to access your strategic logic. Failing to trust yourself. This is the fifth thing. The constant need to translate your excellence to fit a system that was not designed for you to lead. It is eroding your identity as a leader. Over time, you may be stop trusting your own gifts, your talents, and your authority. You start leading and start self-sabotaging yourself, where you decline high profile assignments simply because your nervous system cannot handle not one more thing, including the added visibility. The high cost of constant self monitoring is breaking and killing your decision making. You are depleted of brain power, which means your organization, your team are paying a premium for your leadership, but only receiving a fraction of your strategic excellence. You are essentially operating at a high performance versus high achieving. I can only imagine your internal conversations in your head. Maybe they sound something like this, especially for executive women leaders. One woman shared, it can feel incredibly isolating, especially when these dynamics go unnamed or unmentioned. This is so true. And when you are adding being an African American woman, in this hypersensitive global market, the constant cabulation, the constant balancing takes over real energy. Over time, it pulls focus away from the work and it becomes exhausting. Another woman mentioned the tension between clarity and how it is perceived feels painfully familiar across all cultures. I have been labeled as intimidating because of my confidence in workspaces. I felt that I was expected to monitor my tone, bring it down, dim my light, and be more acceptable. The problem wasn't my words. It was because I was dark skinned, plus size, and confident. Because the combination of all of these things make people stop hearing what I have to say and place emphasis on how they felt about what I said. These problems stem from their personal insecurities, not my delivery. Can you identify with any of these three statements? I know I can, and no doubt you can as well. And you probably are saying, well, fine, Karlyn, there's nothing wrong. But are you waking up at 2 a.m. with a spinning mind and a racing heart? This type of existence is making you sick, and you are paying for your leadership with your health and your peace, right? This isn't just about, this is part of the job. It is a drain on your mental power and your physical energy. By the time you reach the front door, when you arrive home, you are not just tired, you are physically and mentally empty because you have been running on adrenaline all the day long. You aren't losing your edge, my friend. You are just tired of staying quiet and carrying the heavy weight of a system, honestly, that wasn't built for you. But it is time for a change. It is time for recovery. True leadership isn't about how much you can suffer. No, it's about how much you can sustain. You need to move from a state of doing to a safe space of being. Let me put this another way. You need to shift when you stop being the owner of every outcome in the organization within your team, and you need to begin being the steward over a vision. When you carry the weight of owner, you break, right? But when you act as a steward, you breathe with alignment. Listen to this. You are not in the seat of leadership by accident. You are divinely chosen for such a time as this, but you weren't meant to carry all of this alone. With safety and compassion and the right strategy, you can be in a place of alignment. Imagine leading from a mental and a physical space where your worth isn't tied to your output. Better yet, imagine leading from a safe haven where you can breathe with alignment to recoup, refill, and restore. Here is the goal you need to shift from. Did I do enough today? That is the question that you should ask yourself as we talk about the Lead Her Suite podcast question of the week. That type of question is about performance. Now let's transform this and look at a safe space of thinking. Here is the question you really should be asking. Did I lead well today? Now that is alignment, my friend. You have been holding everything together for everyone else. It is time, yes, it is time for you to put a priority on you. You don't need another leadership workshop, another women's conference, or another certification. You are well educated and competent. You need alignment, my friend. You need alignment. I know. You are an executive leader who is beyond money, fame, and power, which is great. I know you are a woman who instead your motivations are anchored in growth and purpose, freedom, holding a space where your life allows you to prioritize your health, your family, and your personal passions without the guilt of doing something and not doing something else as far as leading your corporation, your business, or your nonprofit. It is time to move to a place where you cultivate being authentic, making a difference, and discovering how you can use your success to change and support the landscape for others through your leadership legacy. And you know what? I want to serve you so that you can do just that. Because I truly understand how expectations can sometimes make you feel like you aren't doing enough, even when you are successfully winning. I am opening up 10 spots this week for my private 101 Executive Women Leadership Alignment Audit. I know, that's a lot, right? Now, I don't want this to be another to do thing on your list. I have created a safe haven because I really understand and know what you're going through. Maybe not the exact things, but I know what it's like to be a woman in leadership and the challenges, the internal and the external issues that you deal with. I also know what it's like to be in a Fortune 100 company and a vice president. When you work with me, you don't have to be perfect and you do not have to be strong. You do not have to be the boss. I simply want to help you. I want to help you identify the gap where your physical exhaustion and where your divine alignment can meet. I want you to feel safe and physically and mentally lighter. If you are really interested and you want to move forward to a place where there is safety, where that you don't have to be this strong woman, send a DM to me right now with the word alignment. Don't wait until the quiet crack becomes a total breakdown because of the high cost of constantly monitoring yourself. Break free now from balancing, burnout, broken beliefs, and brutal scripts that you constantly run through your mind. Now to embrace femininity leadership, where there is holistic well being defined with purpose, where there is legacy, connection, and growth. Until next time, I am Karlyn D. Henderson, the host of the LeadHerSuite Podcast.
Thank you for watching or listening to this episode of the LeadHerSuite Podcast with Karlyn D. Henderson. Be sure to subscribe on YouTube or Spotify for the next episode. If you are a high-achieving executive woman compelled to work with Ms. Henderson in breaking free from balancing, burnout, broken beliefs, and brutal scripts, all the while moving towards embracing femininity leadership where there is purpose defined with legacy, professional and spiritual growth, holistic well-being, and connection in community, contact her at Poimena.com or Academy